The woman had spent 10 years funding searches, printing posters, hiring private teams, and waking every morning with the same hollow ache, but nothing prepared her for the moment a small voice stopped her in the middle of a crowded charity hall and shattered the careful armor she wore to survive. In a room filled with polished smiles, cameras, and applause, a quiet certainty cut through everything like lightning, and in that instant the millionaire woman felt her knees weaken, her breath vanish, and her carefully controlled world begin to collapse. This was not another donation event, not another speech about hope. This was the beginning of a truth she had been running from for years. If you believe that kindness can return in unexpected ways and that second chances still exist in this world, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us why humanity still matters. Everyone knew Eleanor Whitmore as the woman who had everything. She built a financial empire from nothing, survived betrayals, and turned her name into a symbol of success and generosity. Her face appeared on magazines, her donations rebuilt schools and hospitals, and her presence alone could change lives. But behind the tailored suits and confident posture lived a mother who never stopped searching for her missing child. 10 years earlier, her 6-year-old daughter vanished during a crowded city festival, swallowed by noise, balloons, and confusion. The investigation dragged on, leads dried up, and hope slowly turned into a quiet, permanent ache. Eleanor learned how to smile for cameras while grieving in silence, how to speak about resilience while her nights were haunted by memories of small hands slipping away. The charity event that evening was meant to be another routine appearance. Crystal lights reflected off marble floors, donors mingled, and a large banner displayed Eleanor's foundation logo, dedicated to missing and vulnerable children. She believed that if she couldn't save her own child, she would save others. The irony was not lost on her, but it gave her pain a purpose. As she stood near the stage, accepting gratitude and polite praise, she felt the familiar exhaustion settle in her chest. Every event like this reopened wounds she pretended had healed. That was when she noticed the girl. She couldn't have been more than 15, standing near the edge of the hall, wearing worn shoes and a simple dress that looked borrowed rather than owned. The girl's eyes didn't wander like the others, they stayed fixed on Eleanor with an intensity that felt unsettling. There was no admiration in that stare, no desire for photographs or favors. It was something deeper, heavier, as if the girl was holding a secret too large for her small frame. Eleanor tried to ignore the feeling, assuming it was her grief projecting meaning where there was none. But the girl moved closer, weaving through guests with hesitant steps. The noise of the room faded as Eleanor became aware of the distance shrinking between them. When the girl finally stood in front of her, time seemed to slow. Eleanor noticed the faint scar above the girl's eyebrow, the nervous way her hands clenched, and the familiarity she couldn't place but felt in her bones. The girl spoke softly, not for attention, not for drama, but with the weight of someone who had rehearsed the moment 1,000 times in fear and hope. She said she knew that missing child. The words hit Eleanor like a physical blow. Her breath caught, her vision blurred, and the room spun as memories crashed into her all at once. Security shifted, guests turned, but Eleanor raised a trembling hand, stopping anyone from intervening. She could feel something breaking inside her, something she had held together for a decade. The girl explained without embellishment, her voice steady despite the storm it caused. She had grown up moving from place to place, under the care of people who never stayed long. She remembered another life in fragments, a woman's laugh, a red balloon, a warm hand letting go. For years she thought they were dreams until she saw Eleanor's face on a poster at a shelter, older but unmistakable. The same eyes, the same curve of a smile. The truth had followed her ever since, growing louder until she could no longer ignore it. Eleanor felt herself sinking into a chair, her strength gone. This wasn't hope anymore, it was terror. Hope had betrayed her before, leaving her emptier than despair ever could. But as she looked at the girl, she saw echoes of a child she had loved with every fiber of her being. The shape of her eyes, the tilt of her head, even the quiet bravery felt hauntingly familiar. Years of training herself to stay composed crumbled, and tears streamed freely down her face in front of everyone. The hall fell silent as the weight of the moment settled. Cameras lowered, whispers died, and something raw and human replaced the polished atmosphere. Eleanor reached out, her hand shaking, afraid that touching the girl would make the moment disappear like a cruel illusion. When her fingers brushed the girl's sleeve, the reality didn't fade. Instead, it grew heavier, more real, and more overwhelming than anything she had ever known. What followed were days of uncertainty that tested Eleanor in ways no boardroom battle ever had. DNA tests, legal processes, and endless questions reopened wounds she had carefully stitched closed. The girl, whose name was Maya, stayed in a modest room provided by the foundation, watched over but not confined. Eleanor visited often, not as a benefactor, but as a woman cautiously stepping toward a truth she was afraid to believe. They shared memories in pieces, discovering small overlaps that felt impossible to fabricate. A lullaby, a fear of thunderstorms, a love for drawing clouds with faces. As results came back, the truth became undeniable. Maya was her daughter. The missing child had not vanished forever, she had survived, grown, and carried the same unanswered longing all these years. When the confirmation arrived, Eleanor didn't celebrate. She collapsed into sobs, mourning not only the years stolen from them but also the child who had suffered without her. Guilt wrapped around her heart, heavy and suffocating, even though logic told her she wasn't to blame. Rebuilding a relationship after a decade apart was not a fairy tale reunion. Maya carried scars that wealth couldn't erase. She struggled with trust, flinched at raised voices, and questioned whether she truly belonged in Eleanor's world. Eleanor, for all her success, had to learn how to be present in ways money never taught her. She listened more than she spoke, allowed silence to exist, and accepted that love didn't erase pain, it walked alongside it. Slowly, something beautiful began to form. Mornings filled with quiet breakfasts, evenings with shared stories, and moments of laughter that felt fragile but real. Eleanor learned that motherhood wasn't about reclaiming what was lost but honoring what remained. Maya discovered that home wasn't a place frozen in memory but something that could be built again, brick by fragile brick. The story spread beyond the charity hall, touching millions who followed Eleanor's journey. But for her, the cameras no longer mattered. What mattered was watching Maya sleep peacefully for the first time, knowing she was safe. What mattered was hearing her call her name without fear. The foundation expanded its mission, now led by a mother and daughter determined to ensure fewer children disappeared into silence. Just before the ending of this story, we invite you to comment below and share what this moment meant to you, because your words help keep stories of hope alive. Years later, Eleanor would stand at another event, not as a woman haunted by loss, but as someone transformed by resilience and grace. She would speak about the night a girl changed her life with a simple truth and remind the world that even in our darkest chapters, light can return. Maya would stand beside her, not as a symbol, but as a survivor whose courage bridged a decade of pain. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe again in miracles shaped by courage and compassion, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps stories like this reach others who may be waiting for hope to find them, just as Eleanor once was.